Terran versus Zerg. And what more do we really need than that? What more motivation do you need to tune in than that? Lots of people were excited about this one at the beginning of the show and even at the end of yesterday. So let's just dive in, Roddy, shall we? In the bottom right, we have the red Terran player. He is Team Liquid's Clem.
The best performing player in the history of this event. Let's not forget the 4-time champ. He's gonna duke it out with this man who once upon a time was incredibly close to making it to the grand finals. One fight away on the Romanticide. Does have a top 3 finish under his belt though, but he needs to overcome his nemesis in the European scene today. This is Shopify Rebellion's Lambo. All right, Nate. I know we just want to sit back and enjoy it, but there's one thing that I've seen Lambo do quite a few times lately on Moondance, and that is indeed pull before hatch. Then he takes the gas, makes it look like it's normal, but it's not normal, and he rallies roaches and ravages to the other side of the map. For some reason, he enjoys it a lot on this map. I am not even exactly sure why. There's obviously no ramp in the natural. It is relatively small. I wonder if he's going to do that again. He's done it quite a few times over the last few months, though.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head right there. Especially on this map, it's very, very common to get, because there's two things about this. Like, even if you knew it was coming, it comes too early for you to really have anything like factory tech. But on the other side, this is one of those maps where, like, you cannot put a siege tank in your main and cover your natural. It just doesn't work. It doesn't reach the front of where you would build your wall. It doesn't reach behind where the minerals would be. So everything has to be down there in front of where that attack would hit in order to do anything. So I think that it's really easy to get caught off guard and overextend if you're playing greedy or not scouting. But for that reason, I like the SCV scout from Clem. He gets the immediate heads up that, okay, this is what's coming. The Reaper gets to stay home just in case. But the real question is, once the SCV, of course, is no longer able to scout, does that roach horn get thrown down, and when does it get built? Because the Queen's going to walk down the ramp, but he's also going to take this third base, and the SCV sees that too. Very, very important read, because I think if you're Lambo, if those lings get scouted, you're like, okay, well, I can just take my third, and now he's not sure if I'm doing this type of early attack. He might still get defensive, but he doesn't have to commit to aggression with this.
Nope, he doesn't have to, and so far it looks like he won't. And that is, to me, maybe a little bit surprising. On the other end, it's not surprising, because I know that Lambo obviously thinks very highly of Clem, as Clem wants to get that first creep tumor. It's a close battle, won't get it, so that's a very good feeling for Lambo. These are the little things, but it really does make the difference on this level. You don't want to lose your first tumor. Obviously, Clem does not want to end up losing his Reaper there, trying to get a tumor that he won't actually get. But yeah, Lambo probably thinks, like, all right, if someone like Roddy knows that I've done this build quite a few times, there's a good chance that Clem knows it too. So what if I make it seem like I'm doing the one thing that I have been doing quite a bit over the last few months, but then it is actually the opposite? And that could obviously be a very smart way to start off this best of 5.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, like you said, Lambo kind of being a player that likes to prepare, but also has a couple of these cheeky builds up his sleeve. That's where you've got, like, okay, you have the A plan, but you know that he's got contingency plans on contingency. He probably goes all the way down to plan D if he needs it. So if you're Clem, I think that what he's doing is just super standard normal, right? Hellions, little Reaper pressure, nothing crazy, but really fast third command center, move into stem. And we know that Clem is a guy that loves to get out on the map. You hit him with the drops, make multi-prong harass when possible. So for Lambo, it quickly just becomes do the Zerg thing. Macro up, get your upgrades, expand. And if you don't want to bring that early aggression, fine. But you know that in a couple of minutes from now, Clem's going to be trying to move across the map nonstop and applying that pressure to Lambo.
Lambo's actually making quite a few links here. Could obviously just be for safety. He only had 2 links right now, so he's going to go up to 14. Maybe worried about Clem doing something wild with his Hellions and doesn't want to find himself in a spot where he ends up losing a lot of drones way before he wants to. Could also try to outmaneuver these Hellions and send these links very randomly into the natural. I believe the last time that these two went up against one another, it was at the final of one of the weeklies, and they actually had a banger of a best of 5. Clem did win it 3-2 in the end. Final game was Stargazers, I believe, but it was really close. And I generally believe that if Lambo is feeling on top of his game, that he's even better now than he was back then. And Clem really is going to have to play an excellent best of 5 to take out this Lambo, because Lambo doesn't treat this tournament like, oh, it's just a little tournament. No, he is so eager to have a great run. He's so eager to show everyone that he is among the very, very, very best in Europe, and not your regular top 12, top 8 guy. No, he wants to be one of the big 4.
Yeah, and he certainly garnered that respect, right? Being a good practice partner, but also a bit of a coach for a lot of these matchups for the other folks over in EU, and has cemented himself as one of the minds behind the metas of the games that we get to see. So Clem now has Stim, double medevac drop loaded up, and we'll start to see how Lambo handles the pressure. You already said it. He's been sitting on some links for a little bit. Now he has even more coming out as that Baneling nest completes. So he's going to have a lot of links to work with. Baneling speed is just now starting, though. So trying to catch with slow Banes can be difficult. It's going to rely a lot on the Queens zoning away the medevacs and those Lings trying to get us around. But even just a couple Overlord kills here is definitely a very nice start for Clem, kind of getting into the mix with the supply there for our Zerg. But the Lings are going to come up. And as long as he doesn't completely stop the creep spread, Lambo should be happy. So the Lings are going to force him to pick up and run away. Hellions are looking towards that northeast base. There are a few drones, just the 2 drones actually, and
there are a few more in this base though. There are a few more in this base, and Lambo can be very fortunate. Clem didn't do this earlier. The armory is done, so these Hellions are going to morph into Hellbats. That means this is going to take a little while to clean up, and at the same time, Clem is going to try to get something done with these Marines with Stim. Overall, nice multitasking. A lot of drones exposed at the 12 o'clock base, and this is starting to add up. I think Lambo's taking a little more damage here than he would have ideally liked to, but he's still up 17 workers. The beauty of a Zerg that knows how to build drones, Nick.
Yeah, he's got a lot of them. How often do you see that? Okay, the attack comes through, you're like, wow, Hellbats are actually killing something Zerg has. And, well, you know, normally the little Hellbat pokes don't do too much, but 9 drones seemed like it would be a lot. Baneling speed is ready, however, so that's the big upgrade that you're waiting on for ZVT. The Hydralisks are coming out, so a little Hydraling Bane action. You'll love to see it. Down the line can turn, of course, into some Lurkers. You get the little Vipers mixed in, and we go for a party. Widowmine drop. He has Drilling Claws, so able to get 3 drones there. One of them heads into the abyss of the extractor, though.
Not a matter of fact, already heading towards the triangle as Lambo is distracted by this one mine. He needs to pay attention to the other Widowmine drop, as one mine obviously got a big connection somewhere. 19 drones have now gone down. Oh my god, it was triple Widowmine drop. We had a drop in the top side of the map as well.
Dropped every base with mines, and Ian had that Drilling Claw upgrade so early too, even before it's 1-1. That's very fascinating. And the 1-1 is going to finish now for Clem, but as he retreats, I mean, the armory is already done.
Yep, and as the observer is showing us, these mines are still here, and they could potentially get some very big shots. They will get big shots. Oh my goodness. Oh, no.
The drones, the Banelings, the Zerglings. Hashtag value right there for Clem. What a crazy amount of pressure to bring. You know, it looks as standard as you can get. A little Hellion opener into some Marines, and you're thinking, okay, Terran player's going to slow things down as they try to get that 4th base and get for a 2-2 timing.
One more drop in the natural.
Clem's like, I'm hitting you with the 1-1 and all those Widow Mines too in the natural. Like you said, Kev, 8 more drones pulverized. And Lambo's still holding up. He's got 68 workers. He's rebuilding 10 of his drones right now. But that takes away his ability to get back across the map. I think that one of the big things with the top Zerg players that we see is they're always getting those backstabs, those run-bys. But Clem has made it very difficult. Lambo's just hanging in there trying to survive. And while Clem, I mean, he's already got that 4th base planetaried up.
He's got 53 Marines with 1-1 upgrades, 4 medevacs in the center of the map. Lambo is just in all sorts of trouble. In a 9-minute game, Clem has managed to kill 47 drones, and he's going to get a few more as we're going to do burrow on burrow, another mine drop heading into the natural.
Oh my goodness.
Clem is literally everywhere at once. This is absolutely brutal. Before the 10-minute mark, Clem has now killed 61 drones, and Nate, that's not all. He's got a monstrous army too.
Yeah, that big army. You're talking about 50 Marines. They are making their way towards that northeast expansion, and the creep spread has been dramatically reduced. There's still a decent amount of Banelings, but he's got to go through the mines, and they're not able to get the detonations they're looking for on those Banelings. But without the Zerglings to buffer, this is, I mean, if there's one thing we've known Clem is very good at his whole career, it's targeting down those Banelings. So he's continuing to posture at the front, but gets another mine drop into the 3rd base. 7 more drones get popped. One of them turns into a spore to save itself. So good move there, but Wow, Clem is up 177 to 129 supply of Lambo. Crazy.
It does not get much more brutal than this. Pretty much a nightmare game one for Lambo. I guess the silver lining is that Moondance is one of these maps that is going to be very difficult for Lambo. He does often end up playing it in the best of 3 though, so it's not even one of his first 2 vetoes, but this is not a map that Zerg players in general get ultra excited over. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this one is all dead. If you just take a look at Lambo's vision, if the observer could do that for us, Lambo never got into the main base. Lambo never saw the triangle base go down. Doesn't know about this base right now going in the bottom side. And I guess because he never got an Overlord or an Overseer scout off, he didn't know about the very quick double factory. He didn't know about the very quick drilling claws. And he just wasn't ready, Nate. And if you're not ready for something that Liquid Clem is throwing at you, life is going to be very unpleasant.
Yeah, it's just a ridiculous amount of Widow mine drops that he's worked throughout this too. 22 mines have died here for 68 drones, and obviously having that fast burrow makes him a little bit easier to use in combat too, while Clem has secured his 5th base in the bottom left and now gets his +2 upgrades. But as far as things are concerned for Lambo on the defensive side, I mean, he's been able to survive this so far, now trying to get out onto the tanks, but that is off creep, and that huge bio ball just mows those Zerglings down. And this is the hardest part about it, Roddy, is he's just not been able to get the creep out because of this relentless pressure.
Exactly. He's been so busy cleaning up mines left, right, and center that he's not been able to get the creep out as far as he would like to. And that means that these fights are just going to be a bit horrific. Obviously, the Baneling count wasn't quite there either. It was a bit of an anti-timing as the 2-2 upgrades finish up now. Lambo will still have a tiny shot in this game. But the next time they fight, Lambo doesn't need a victory. Lambo needs to completely wipe out this army of Clem with minimal losses. Setting up a bit of a run-by. It's actually kind of a promising run-by. Gets on top of a couple of tanks. There are still a few Banelings in the mix. Normally, this would be a victory for the Zerg. Right now, I think it's safe to say that Lambo needs a whole lot more, as he did connect with a couple of bio units as well on the right side. A few more Banes tried to connect with bio units. That didn't work out. At least didn't take additional damage at home. Has made it up to Hive, and the fact that he's made it up to Hive in a game where he has lost just a silly amount of workers before the 10-minute mark, and like you said before, 68 right now throughout this game, is something to be somewhat hopeful of, as he does pick up a medevac as well on the left side. If Lambo survives another wave and the following wave, I start believing again, Nate.
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity coming up because he's going to have the Vipers. We can see the potential for some abducts onto the tanks or a blinding cloud for a big push in. If the bio does not get into a good setup, that could be all he needs to get the Banelings close enough. But we've even got ghosts coming into the mix. So the snipes onto those Hydras, very realistic possibility. Even if the Overseer exposes itself, that could help set up the mines too. He's going to take that Hydra on the way out with a little steady targeting. So Widowmine is covering the choke by the bottom of that ramp. That's going to bait some of the Lings over to the tank. But man, it's like you said, Roddy, we need Lambo to get a clear, decisive, like he needs to kill this whole entire army and still have enough left over that Clem can't just rally forward, you know, so he can actually get this base situated, get the rest of his tech out. And that's what he's going to try to do now as he comes out from the southwest. He's going to also hit on the east side, getting those Widowmine shots onto some of the Lings, but a lot of them still remain. Parasitic Bomb gets thrown in the medevacs as those are quite weak. And the Ghost kind of getting caught on the ramp there through the blinding cloud as Lambo was finally able to unseat this army, but that's a lot of Ghosts and Marines as he's pushing up towards that 4th to continue to push this back.
Yep, but Lambo does get the majority of the tanks, and that's obviously going to make it a bit harder for Clem to think about attacking again, because Ghosts are great defensively, and offensively they can be great as well, but they need a lot of protection, and that's protection that Clem currently doesn't have. I'm really impressed by Lambo, because to me this felt like a bit of a nightmare game. It really did feel that he was taking a beating left, right, and center, and those first 50+ Marines, I thought that Clem was going to end it. Clem didn't end it. And that means that we now have a completely different game. But Lambo's working with Hive. Lambo has Adrenal Glands on the way, +3 melee, +3 carapace. Do we have an Ultralisk Cavern? Nope. What do you think he's going to go for when it comes to the Hive tech units now? You think he's going to switch it up, or he's going to stay on this comp for a while?
I think this is working for him, and because he wants to transition into Ghosts, I think for Lambo, recognizing that and staying heavy on Ling Bane is still a pretty good move. It's really just going to come down to continuing to get those big surrounds and try to hit the counterattacks. Like, I don't hate the idea of Ultralisks or Broodlords. I think there's not really any direction. There's nothing set up for him to move into Spire, so that option's kind of off the table. But this many Ghosts would actually be pretty good against Ultras, so this. It's very hard to say. Yeah, big surround is what he's going to go for. And here it comes again. Huge swell from the north and the south. There is a tank on the high ground, target firing down some of those clumped up banelings, but he's going to get yoinked in. And now the ghosts just have to run.
Wow.
Off creep with medevac support, they should be able to get away. But this is actually exactly what Lambo needs to do. If your opponent is going to switch into this very technical setup, then hey, the answer isn't really there for just the overwhelming Ling Bane if he's mixing in all these ghosts and these tanks and these mines. And yeah, because like you said, the ghosts, they're crazy. They're cracked in this matchup, but they're not that good on their own in the open field against an army.
I'm shocked that we're here. I really am, because Lambo had so little creep to work with, was losing a lot of drones, but he has done incredibly well over the last few minutes. Now, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to win this game, because if Clem can get this pace, then obviously it's still going to get very scary. But Lambo's going to try to do something about it. He's got 46 banelings as well. Clem does have a drop happening in the pocket expand, but I think this fight right here is quite important, and so far it's not going all that poorly for Lambo, because he didn't even use his banelings yet. Widow Mines get some decent shots off. Will Lambo get the planetary? He will. Yes, no, yes. Oh my goodness, he doesn't get it.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty crazy. I mean, Lambo, I still felt like he did a good amount of damage there, but he definitely wanted to get that base because, again, he's trading out huge amounts of resources to deal damage to Clem that will be a little bit harder for the Terran to recover from. But now he's got to deal with having these liberators on his mineral lines. I think this is a really good move by Clem because the only thing that's going to really unseat them, unless he gets directly under a spore crawler like that one, is like the Viper would have to pull it back into the Hydras, or he has to move the Hydras all the way over there and kind of eat some damage before he can get kills. So both of those end up working in his favor for now. But just keep this big swarm style. I do think that's the correct way to play this situation because Clem wants to move out. He doesn't want to sit back and be crazy passive, but every time that he takes that step forward and he doesn't have all this stuff already prepared, look at how many units Lambo can throw at him. He's got 100 lings pouring through. He's got a huge amount of reinforcements coming in, 50 more being made. Wow. The planetary this time will not survive, and those ghosts get backed up all the way into the minerals. Lambo, he's just playing a phenomenal macro game, really hanging in there and taking advantage of the best way that he could have abused this army that became slower, more technical, less multi-prong harass, more big kind of Terran death ball. But that's how you do it. You just got to get a real big bun to put that sandwich in.
Yep, there were a couple of Widow Mines, and those Widow Mine connections were very big, and it almost makes you wish that Clem wouldn't have completely given up on the Widow Mine idea, because these mines have been solid. But what a game won by Lambo, a game where he definitely lost a lot of workers early on, and I really felt he was on the verge of losing pretty quickly because the Marine count was ridiculously high. Lambo's army wasn't all that great, but he has made absolute magic happen with this good old Ling Hydra Bane. The man is not a very big fan of the Hydras. He talks about it a lot, but he's damn good with them. And Clem does still have 75 army supply. Clem does still have 7 ghosts. 7 ghosts is not insane, but it's obviously enough to potentially get a couple of good snipes if he gets a bit of a trade. And he has gone back into the Widow Mines, now realizing what is happening. Since Lambo's not tacking up, and it's a lot about the Lings and Banes, Widow Mines can be great here, but I don't know if these mines are here in time. A few more blinding clouds go down, and I think this planetary fortress will get taken out. Well, it's not even a planetary, it's just going to be a command center, but another base falls. Lambo is obviously throwing everything he has here at Clem, and this is where the ghost can shine, right at the tail end of a battle like that. That didn't go all that poorly for Clem. The only thing that really sucked is that he lost another command center.
Indeed. I think you called it out, Kev, but I 100% agree with you. Moving back into the Widow Mines is the correct play against this, because for Lambo, part of what lets this work is that he can set up multiple moves in advance. You can use a little shift command action, try to get the big flank, but you're not 100% micromanaging every single unit the whole time. So even just 1 or 2 of those mines getting a decent shot off can really relieve the pressure on the defensive side when you have one of those angles that you can retreat to. But Lambo playing for the big overwhelm, I think, the siege tanks are not working. And I think we're seeing the weakness of them in the late game. They just, they just don't handle that many units because there's so much space to spread out. If this map was like all the choke points were half as tight, if you crushed everything up, then maybe. But I'd say even then, the Widow Mines are still going to get it done because those blinding clouds have been brutal. Lambo's control with this army has been stellar, but getting some Hellbats out, getting some Widow Mines, That is definitely the way to go. And I love that he has Blue Flame actually on the Hellbats, because they're going to one-shot the Lings since they have +3 attack. And that's something that is, Lambo might end up struggling with if these Banes don't get good connections.
Yep, this could be a very scary fight. It's a very important one for the outcome of this game. Lings get us around on the goals at the bottom. Clem with the hot pickup though saves the majority of his goals, but Lambo does get the tanks. And I think if a few more Hydras show up, Lambo could maybe get another orbital. That's not the case, but he does want to get all these SCVs, and he doesn't actually get the majority of those either. I mean, that was about as even as a fight could have been. But Lambo does not have a crazy bank, right? Like if you have 5k, you're like, all right, that was good enough. But for Lambo, that was a very important attack. Lost a couple of his Vipers. Didn't kill too many ghosts. I believe he only took out 2 ghosts. And he didn't kill the Orbital and all the SCVs either. That may have actually been a little victory for Clem in the end.
Yeah, because the thing is, Lambo's been pushing on the resources lost. He's been behind a little bit, just the nature of playing this style, right? You have more bases, you're throwing units into them, you're trying to make these trades for the better units, but it's only 5,000 gap. So that's really not too much when you consider that he's got that northeast corner base, he has this southwest base, and I think Clem still needs one more expansion to get into a happy place. But you can really see those Hellbats doing a lot more work than the tanks in those fights, clearing the Lings off of everything, because that's a big part of it too, as it's just been baiting those units in for those huge hits. But Lambo is ready to go for another attack, and if Clem can survive this one and keep that base mining, that would be a fantastic maneuver. But the Lings all coming in from behind. Hellbat's trying to spread out and catch them. Parasitic Bomb put onto the medevac too while this is happening. Liberator is going to try to siege up and hold on to this base. Will he be able to do it? It looks like it's just the Hydralisks left, and they are under the liberation zone, so they're starting to get picked off, but he's moving up and trying to manually target fire the ghosts so that they can't use their steady targeting, and he actually picks up and drops one of the ghosts to avoid the Hydras. We're getting some disgusting levels of micro on both sides here, Roddy. Lambo recognizing that the ghosts were going to pick his units off, so he attacks them to cancel the steady targeting, because it is a channel that can be interrupted. And Clem recognizing that, micromanaging the one guy out. This is exactly what he needs to do, is not lose that command center, and now he has to take this base and hold on to it. I would, if he had the money, you want to get a bunker or 2. I still think that Lambo is in a good spot because of the cash flow, but Clem, if he maintains this base and holds off one more of those attacks, I think this turns around really quickly.
Don't forget that that's still an orbital though at 3 o'clock. So maybe Lambo can just send like 20 Lings into that base, and that would already be problematic. But if you just look at the minimap right now, you can see a Zerg doing what Zergs love, and that is setting up one big engagement coming in from literally pretty much every single angle. Queens are going to stoke up a couple of Marauder shots, and here we go once more. Native Widowmine does connect on the right side. We have mines on the left. Such a big fight. Most of the tanks are going down though, and the ghost count is at 7, but the ghosts are forced to run for the hills, and Lambo should just go for a couple of SCVs here. Lings with +3 melee and Adrenal Glands. They don't need a lot of time. Banelings connect with the SCVs this time around, and I think the German Zerg has finally done it. I do not believe that Clem can recover from this.
No, he's been completely economically demolished. We only have 28 workers. You can see he started to build Hellbats on the tail end of that, but the Lings, eventually he just he didn't have enough money to actually build an army that could just handle Zerglings. It's a lot of ghosts, a lot of technical units. Now some Hellbats come out, but it's just a little bit too late, because all of those other expansions are mined out. Even that bottom left base for Clem is mined out, and that's it. GG. Lambo takes game number 1. I think we can both agree, Roddy, after the first 9 minutes, we basically talked about how it seemed like it was almost a perfect game from Clem. He killed 60 plus workers in 9 minutes, had his 2-2, had a 4th base, was taking a 5th, and Lambo still came back and smacked him. You can't ask for a better performance than that.
Nope, and that's going to give Lambo a lot of momentum for the rest of this best of 5 as well. Obviously, if a Terran goes for double factory, Widow Mines, Drilling Claws, they are going to kill a lot of workers. We've seen that before in the past. There's always a mine drop that's going to be successful. It's obviously a big investment for the Terrans as well. It's medevac after medevac. It's Widow Mine after Widow Mine. But often what we see is like 25, 30, maybe 35 drones fall for 8 to 10 Widow Mines and then a couple medevacs, and you'd be like, it's still playable. But this was pretty extreme. A lot of drones went down in every base. Even the Hellions found some success. And when I looked at Clem's Marine Army, I was like, that's a Marine Army. That's good enough to end the game. And I kind of feel that peak Clem would have actually been able to end the game with that kind of an arm, because you used to need insane amount of banelings to even think about connecting with your banelings to the Marines of Clem on the edge of creep. But kudos to Lambo. I honestly need to take another look at that game to even see how he did that. I do think that indeed Clem was a bit too heavy on the tanks for a while, but the Widow Mines were actually serving him better in some of these big fights than the tanks were. But amazing job by Lambo. Very, very well done. Clem was getting ready for that ultra late game TVC where he could snipe Brood Lords, he could snipe Ultras, but it wasn't really the time for the ghosts to shine. It was a lot more about the basic battle units where a lot of extra Marauders would have came in maybe more handy than the ghost did.
Yeah, it's like such a technical situation, because you expect that the Zerg, as they level up and they get that hive, they're going to move into units that you need the ghosts for, because that's why ghosts are great. But the one thing that they're not super great against is just the massive cheap units, because they cost a lot. Replacing them is not an easy thing to do. So for Lambo, it's like, if I build Ultralisks, they will most likely all get sniped in some sort of choke point, and I will lose. If I just keep making Ling Bane and like you said, play around for those big setups, get the big surrounds, then the ghosts are effectively useless, because all they're going to do is maybe kill 2 or 3 Lings or Banes before they get completely overrun. And then there's just not enough Marines. There wasn't enough really anything else to deal with that huge swell. So I just really like that. The adjustment did come in. It was just too late. It needs to move into those Hellbats faster, maybe go back into building the mines, like you said, faster. But either way, it's a new game. It's a new opportunity here on Cosmic Sapphire. And in the top left, we have the red Terran player representing Team Liquid. He is Clem.
And in the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of the man who is possibly facing his most difficult challenge in this region, but he's off to a great start in this very important best of 5. Representing the Shopify Rebellion, this is Lambo.
Because the thing is, it's not like there was anything that was bad about the way that game started for Clem. So if you look at it, you're like, well, if he doesn't do all of that damage, then what does the game look like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Lambo straight up had one of those to reference the great Tasteless. He was talking about Gumiho and said when he's down, all of a sudden he gets this huge buff of his damage when he's close to being killed. And Lambo showing that was just ridiculous. If he keeps that pace up in this game, I don't see how Clem gets that much damage in again. And it makes me a little bit nervous, because if Lambo's able to get map control and play this style before that 10-minute mark, then I think he can really give himself a lot of opportunities to end the game even just sooner than that, because that's why that heavy Ling Bane style is so good, is you have those counterattack opportunities. The moment the Terran overextends and you catch him, then it's a hop, skip, and a jump over to wherever their nearest base is, because that army is so fast. And we've seen his execution on the control be top tier. That being said, I wouldn't mind seeing the crazy mind drop thing again, but clearly it didn't have the impact that Clem was looking for. So maybe we'll see something a little bit different from him this time around.
And it's hard to imagine that he wasn't happy with the amount of damage that the Widow Mines did. It's more just that the follow-up didn't quite work out. And maybe at one point, there was this one fight with obviously the tanks in the center of the map where I feel like the tanks were derping a little bit with side blockers and whatnot. But I really didn't think that all of that was going to have that much impact, because it just felt like a nightmare game. But it clearly wasn't. And obviously, make no mistake, a Zerg is always going to lose some drones, like 10, 15, 20, that kind of stuff is acceptable.
But 60?
Yeah, but 60 before like the 10-minute mark, I believe it was, or 11-minute mark, that felt like an insane amount.
Crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that that's the conversation we have to have. Is it's like, well, does he change it up? Because obviously nobody would be upset with that. But you're right. It was the follow-up, and maybe there's a different way to try and take that out of Lambo's hands. I don't know. I think this is one of the reasons why Lambo has that respect and is a feared opponent, because he's not just someone that has that mechanical ability, but even in a weird situation like that, he can take all of those drone losses and not really let it stop him. He still got where he needed to be. It just it just came a little bit later maybe, but didn't seem to be much of a problem.
Clem is going to open up triple CC this time around. A couple of Hellions, and let's see what we make out of the starport. Will it be a Banshee? It will be a Banshee. And then I actually wonder if he's going to go for a Cloak as well. Obviously, Hellion double Cloak Banshee is one of the most classic openings that Terran players have been working with for a long time. And Clem's multitasking has been stellar with this. In the past, we have seen him completely pick Zerg players apart. We've also seen games where he made a few slip-ups. I think back of the Home Story Cup finals, where he lost one of the 2 Banshees 10 seconds before Cloak was ready. That was obviously a bit silly. So far, though, not investing in Cloak. It could just be a single Banshee.
I like that. I mean, Lambo has shown to be a player that will bring the roaches. And even if this is a little bit later than whatever that timing would have been, he still has it for safety purposes. And in a worst case scenario, he can just send it and just be a little bit annoying with it, force the queens to reposition somewhere, maybe could combo it with the Hellions diving in or something of that sort. So it's not the craziest thing to go without the Cloak, because you do expect the Zerg player to build a couple of spores anyway as soon as they see it, just to be safe.
So quick stim, quick double eBay is going to be the follow-up. Curious to see if Clem is going to do anything wild with his Hellions, or he probably feels that he needs to keep those around a little bit longer than normal, because obviously we don't have double Banshees, it's a single Banshee. Lambo is droning like a mad lad. 11 extra drones are on the way. Queens are in the correct position. The Hellions, Nate, will they go for it? The Hellions they kind of test the waters. They get a few shots off. A couple drones do fall. No, Clem. That's not the stuff you need to do here in the playoffs. You can see that in his camera as well. He was clearly not happy with that one. Bit of a donation. And Lambos is looking solid so far, and Clem is making a few errors at this point.
Yeah, I think there has to be an error of frustration. He probably realizes. I don't think he's unaware of how much damage he did in the position that he was in the first game. So it doesn't get easier from here, because he has not already started to kill everything with mine drops, which is a weird thing for us to be talking about at this point. But I think that you're right about keeping the Hellions alive. This map especially is just so freaking huge. That creep is going to spread out in every direction, and you are going to have a hard time stopping it, no matter how dedicated you are to slowing it down. Because if you're scanning in the bottom left, it's going to go to the top right. So for Lambo, that's one of the things to focus on, and keep vision over this big map, because there's a lot of different directions these attacks could come from. And now Clem dropping the Marines onto the Hellions, where the Overlord sees it all. Is he ready? Bane speed's halfway done this time.
Obviously, there is good firepower here, but I think on creep with 25 links, 8 queens, you just buy a bit of time. Lambo's going to have reinforcements for days. Now, being supply blocked is not going to help. That can obviously become a little bit problematic. Clem is going to stim, and obviously, if these queens can just force out stim after stim, Lambo's already going to be happy. A couple of Hellions do morph into the Hellbats now, but it doesn't really feel that Clem is anywhere near where he wants to be. You don't want to get your queens off creep either. Look at the HP on these Marines, Nate. It's just too low to keep on doing this.
He's stimming a lot, because he thinks the fight's going to happen, and he's ready to pull back and save the Marines no matter how low they get. But he's not going to find what he's looking for with this attack, I don't think. The Hellbats are going to get eaten up by the Banelings. They're going to turn around. So I guess at the very least, they soak a little bit of the damage. They're going to force him to build a few more. But Clem has his next wave kind of just chilling at home, rallying to that ramp, or the wall rather, in the event of a run-by attack. But this game just kind of feels like the last game, Roddy, except Lambo has a lot more money to work with, because he didn't have to rebuild 60 drones.
But what is interesting to me is that Clem is now once more going into drilling claws, and I don't think that's necessarily to drop at all. That's probably just because he felt like, hey, Lambo, you never made those hive units. Why did you never make the hive units? Why did you stay in the basic units forever? If you're going to do that again, I'm just going to continue building Widow Mines. And these are Widow Mines that are just meant to change the outcome of some of the battles. And I do kind of like to see that, because we were talking about it. The mines could have had a much bigger impact than some of the tanks did, as the Marines find a few queens in the bottom left side. Clem definitely starts to feel like this is Clem again, right? He's active in the top right side. Lambo's a little bit out of position. 1 or 2 drones could fall here. The answer is going to take a bit of a beating. Lambo will save the base, but I feel that Clem is picking up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, indeed. And I agree with you too. I think that using the Widow Mines in general would be much better long-term than siege tanks. Spread them out. Put them all over the map, turn it into a minefield, make Lambo, have to be very deliberate about where he's moving his overseers. These Banelings, though, running uncontested to the 3rd mineral line. Nothing prepared to catch these, and some Marine reinforcements will be able to save the workers, but Lambo's going to dive on the army outside of the tower while that happens. Going a little bit off creep though. That heavy Marine count working very, very well. You know, as long as he has those Widow Mines to retreat to and continue to use that position, that is going to be really nice. And he is trailing them behind the bio as he continues his push forward towards the fourth. Another double drop actually hitting the southwest while this is happening. So Lambo really getting his attention span stretched here to the maximum. But he has a lot of units to deal with this attack. The Lings all get cleaned up in the bottom left, though. So a little bit more pressure needs to split off a little bit more. The Hydras and Banes are ready for the main army.
Widow Mines. Oh my goodness. Actually, the Overseer still dies despite the fact that we had a transfuse going down. Clem could have done a bit more with the drop in the bottom left side, because I was actually following that on my main monitor and keeping a close eye on the main fight on the second. He was definitely F2ing a little bit, so the Marines were fighting all over the place. What will these Widow Mines settle for? They connect with a couple of Hydras, they connect with a couple of Banelings. Hydras don't have the speed upgrade yet, by the way, and that's a bit shocking, because we have been building Hydras for a decent amount of time right now. Lings are counterattacking, and that means that Clem needs to take care of that, and he needs to babysit all of his Marines in the front.
Yeah, and that little run by does get stuffed there, but it hasn't been that easy fourth secure like before either. So Lambo continues to step forward in his tech. There is the Hive now on the way, and it's that classic ZVT where you're behind a little bit on upgrades because it takes just a little bit more investment in the tech to get the next generation for Zerg. But big run by coming over now in the northeast. 2 medevacs worth of Marines from Clem going for a fight in the middle, looking for a big shot on the mines. He does get it on a lot of the Lings and Banes.
These Widow Mines are really turning the tide of some of these battles. It's making it a bit harder for Lambo. Can't just aim move, needs to be so wary of it. Now a lot of Marines. Clem is staying in. Oh my goodness. He actually got a lot of the Banelings there. I thought that was absolutely crazy, but welcome back, Liquid Clem. He killed so many Banelings there. He still has units active on the right side. Is pulling SCVs away from a Baneling run by. That Widow Mine is ready to fire again in the near future. I mean, Clem is all over the place at this point. Lambo's having a hard time spending his money. The Queens have been working out in the battle, so they're obviously not transfusing or injecting as much as they should be. If Lambo can spend his money, he'd be sort of all right, but at the moment, he's clearly struggling in that regard.
Yeah, this is really, really fun, though. Clem's kind of bringing us back to some Heart of the Swarm TVZ, and I love to see it. I think this is a great approach to this, especially with the way that these mines have made it a little bit more difficult to just try and run through everything. A lot of Zerglings are getting killed by them, and another detonation is going to take out half the Banelings with this northeast force. He does have another drop on the bottom left that's going to be hitting at the same time as this, too, so continuing to play the ramp, stepping back, grabs the Lings, and it's just Hydra Bane. If he sends the Banelings without anything to cover for them, we know there's going to be that target fire that Clem is so good at. Banes come up, the ramp mine is going to detonate, but he's off creep, safe to retreat. And that bottom left force still just kind of waiting a little bit pensively, not sure if it's going to move in yet.
Yeah, and this is going to give Lambo time to spend some of these minerals that he has been sitting on. Lambo even feels that it's the right moment to dive on this drop in the bottom left side. Gets the medevacs immediately with the Hydras. Can Banelings connect with bio units in the center of the map? The answer is no, but Lambo does completely reset the Widow Mine count. There is a mine on the high ground, though, that has a lot of potential, and will get a decent shot off on a nice amount of Lings. And that's going to force Lambo to turn around once more. A couple of Hydras armies rally. And these are very expensive units. One Baneling does finally connect, but it feels that it's almost a bit too late after Lambo lost so many expensive units there.
Yeah, this is where Clem is really able to shine. You know, those siege tanks, they're very easy to take advantage of their position. If they're not in a special spot, if it's not a very meticulously thought out attack, going for the tanks can be a huge liability. We are seeing the Widow Mines deliver big time here for Clem. As he's approaching that 200 supply mark. Lambo still working towards the max out, trying to get that +3 carapace, but still does not have +3 melee. And you know what? He hasn't started Adrenal either, which is a pretty big upgrade for those Banelings, excuse me, for those Lings. So getting the attack speed here would be a big boon to him, but Clem has just kept this ridiculous pressure up nonstop.
I think Lambo just feels that he didn't have that much gas to work with in the past. At the moment he does, and he does get a cleanup on a couple of these tanks. It's just there is no creep to work with at all. Viper is going to be a little bit exposed, but the Banelings will keep it safe. Clem is once more on the bottom side of the map as Lambo has a tiny run by, but even a tiny run by of +2 Lings can obviously be annoying to deal with if you don't have planetary. And look at the mini map. Clem is actually pulling his entire army back. And that's going to give Lambo a bit of breathing space. You know what I'd love to see here as well, Nate? Burrow. If we don't have a lot of creep to work with, we should really get Burrow. It's something that I often praise Elaser for. I think he's so damn good with it in this matchup, and I feel there would have been a lot of potential for some nice Burrow banelings. Oh, Widow Mines! Oh!
Huge shots onto those Zerglings there. Another great pickup for Clem. And that's I think part of the thing too is when you're trying to move units around all over the map, not being able to see them on that mini map definitely hurts the reaction time. So the Marauders are the ones that step up towards the front immediately to eat the Banelings as they try to push through. Now it's mostly just the Lings and Hydras. The Bio can just steamroll through this. The Banelings are going to finish morphing soon though, so kind of being a little bit cautious. Had a moment there to step forward, I think, but decided not to press his luck, as an overextension here could turn into a massive counterattack.
Yep, one tank getting a good shot off there on a lot of the links. Lambo is getting closer and closer to maxing out. We have another lair on the way. Okay, that's the random. Must be a misclick as a couple of banelings do connect. Lambo sends it in the main army. Gets on top of a couple of tanks. Nice split on the medevacs when it comes to that parasitic bomb. But it doesn't quite feel there is a whole lot of firepower here to deal with all these Banes. In the end, it is going to be good enough. And Lambo is forced to retreat once more. +3 melee even on the way now before Adreno. And a Lurk then going down. As more banelings going to try to connect. Clem stays around for a long time, but off creep, he's feeling as confident as ever.
Yeah, this has still been a very stressful situation, you know, not being able to get the creep out, constantly having to fight up a ramp, even if it is defensively for Lambo, is still not a good time. And I think we're seeing with the Overseers and Overlords dying, he's supply blocked, Roddy. He's at 168 of 156, and there are no Overlords in production.
Well, then we can always just go ahead and take a fight and lose a couple of our battle units as Link's base crash in from multiple angles. The medevacts are very low on HP. Another parasitic bomb would be problematic. That's a lot of banelings, Nate, and the ghosts are kind of strapping. Not exactly sure where to run to. There is one Widow Mine there. Will Lambo see it? Lambo did not see it. And that is a good connection on a couple of those banelings. And in the end, Clem will keep all these units safe. I'd love to see another random para bomb or two. It's one of my obsessions. I love it. I think it's so annoying to micro against, even if you're Clem and he's done a good job against it. As one leftover mine actually just connected there with some of the retreating units of Lambo. At least there is some supply now to build units, but he needs to. He's pretty broke, Nate. He is pretty broke. 100 minerals in the bank at this point. Lambo needs a great fight, otherwise he's going to be in serious trouble here.
Yeah, indeed. Gonna yoink over one of the siege tanks, but it is mostly just these Hydras and Banes. Ghosts gonna be going to get some snipes from afar. Quite a few Hydras getting ripped up. And while all of this happens, the Liberator sieges up on that southwest expansion. Clem has secured the northeast base, and Lambo's trying to get some upgrades now for the Lurkers. We're seeing him feel like he has to move past this phase of tech, but it might be a little bit too late as he's gonna push off creep, continuing to chase, and the Ghosts on the run. But without the creep spread, they can actually outrun those banelings. So not able to get the big hits he was looking for. Turns around, lands a few more snipes, and Lambo continues to be on the defensive side of things as Clem floats a command center over to the gold base. He does not want to give up this series, and he has made some great adjustments in this second game to recover from where things fell apart in that first map. But as the Lambo continues to try to get those upgrades for the Lurkers, this next big push from Clem is going to be even more difficult to dislodge.
Yeah, Lambo's really running out of steam here, and he knows it. Try to transition into those Lurkers you just mentioned. He's got seismic spines, does not have the adaptive talents, but more problematic, doesn't have a single Lurker. Does land a few abducts on a couple of these expensive goals. It is 64 army supply still for Lambo. The final few Hydras are trying to make the difference. Unfortunately, I have the feeling that the Hydra is just not powerful now. We do have 40 extra links on the way, but we never got that Adrenal Glands upgrade, and it really does make a very big difference in a game like this, an 18-minute game where Lambo has lost 693 Zerglings. Yeah, you absolutely wish you had Adrenal Glands.
Yeah. We can really see where this is just that extra stress of this match, the way that this game has gone, making things as complicated as possible. And kudos to Lambo that he's actually still managed to get these Lurkers out, and he did get the upgrades for them. So he'll send everything, go for the big dive. There is the burrow on the Lurkers, but there's enough ghosts here to land a couple of snipes, and he's at least going to get 1, 2, and that's it. GG Clem ties things up 1 apiece.
And he played really good. Had a couple of great moments throughout that game, especially the target fire on the Banelings a few times. The way that he kept on retreating his bio. So a few moments it felt impossible to split. I was like, Clem, you're splitting across 3 screens right now. This can never go well. This is where misclicks happen. But it really felt like it didn't. He did such a good job in avoiding these big clumps of Banelings. A really strong showing by Clem on, let's not forget, a very difficult map for Terran, right? If you have a best of 5 and you go up against a strong Zerg, you don't really look at Cosmic Sapphire as that's my must win. Like, for instance, the next game is going to be played on Stargazers. Makes me wonder what Lambo vetoed then. I guess he vetoes Waterfall, which is kind of funny because a couple of the Korean Zergs are actually quite fond of Waterfall. But yeah, Stargazers is going to be a lot more pleasant for Clem than Cosmic Sapphire was.
Yeah. Definitely. And I mean, it's just a funky map, right? There's all sorts of ways that Terran can especially make your life miserable on Stargazers. So let's see which way he chooses to do that. Feel like we did not overhype this series, Roddy. 2 games in, and it feels like we've already played like 3 best of 3s worth of TVZ. As it has just been a ridiculous matchup. Clem and Lambo really giving each other what for. I have no idea who is going to come out on top in this series, but man, oh man, if the rest of the games are as good as those last 2, we are in for a ride.
And that's a good thing because we've been hyping this one up and we know that a lot of StarCraft fans were really looking forward to this one. Let's hope it continues on the high note of game 1 and game 2. In the top left side, we're looking at the main base of the guy that still everyone is talking about and the most successful player in this specific tournament. He's won 4 out of 7 editions. This is Liquid Clem.
And his opponent in the Northeast, spawning as the blue Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion, he is Lambo. It's madness, Roddy. Absolute madness. So where do we even go from here? Do we get that similar setup? Just the fast 3 CCs out of Clem? Do we see Lambo bring the aggression? You have a ramp near the natural, but not into it. So some of those types of strategies still pop up. I don't think that Lambo's the guy to try and do a mine out the minerals behind the pocket base sort of build, but I guess that's on the table too.
Well, we know that mech is incredibly good on this map. If you are a world-class mech player, you're going to have a very, very fun time playing mech here. Clem has obviously always been a bio boy a lot more than he's been a mech boy, even though he is capable of playing mech and he's absolutely capable of executing it at the highest levels that we can possibly see in the European scene. I don't know. He's obviously probably fine with just playing bio here as well and then eventually setting for a split map scenario. I'm a little bit and make a lot of goals and fight over the gold and do Terran things that they do on Stargazers. What I wonder about is if Lambo is going to play Spire or not, because that's what he's been doing in the past when I saw him on Stargazers and he got very close to finding a lot of success, but it's so freaking hard to close out games with Spires against Terrans that will just start camping eventually with Thors, Widowmines, Ghost, and a lot of missile turrets and sensor towers. Like, no matter how far ahead you are as the meta player, it's so hard to end it.
Yeah, there's not really any easy way to finish somebody off here, especially, sometimes Terran, you can have that exposed third base, the run bys and all that sort of stuff that we discussed, but on this map, especially if you want to slow things down, you have the option to completely take that off the table with the pocket base. And obviously you don't need to rush into that one either. So if you're able to secure a forward third, then your fourth is free, right? And having that insurance policy, particularly for Terran, is always nice because you're not, you don't necessarily want to be exposing all of your bases, but you also don't want to make them all planetaries.
Exactly. For now, we have Hellions on the way, and Clem is going for a bit of a 2-base setup at first. So maybe he wants to be a bit more aggressive than we anticipated, and maybe Lambo won't anticipate that either, because Terran players don't need to be crazy aggressive on Stargazers. Most of the time, the longer the game goes, the more pretty it starts looking for the Terrans, and the more dire it becomes for the Zergies. And Lambo, if you take a look at his Overlord positioning, he does have an Overlord that is now going to take a little sneak peek, at least to the top of the ramp of Clem. and hopefully we'll find what he's looking for. Doesn't quite commit though.
No, not quite. Keeping the Hellions alive. Look, against anybody that's going to build as many Zerglings as Lambo is, or really any of the top Zerg players in Europe, I feel like you always want to try and keep these Hellions alive because they will generate value forever. Well. But we have those double mines being built here, Roddy. So maybe not with drilling claws because it's a little bit too early for that. But some mine shenanigans, I'm down for it.
Yeah, Clem is going to be pretty aggro here by the looks of it. Does have money for a command center right now. Is going to drop it. Overlord will not see the medevac. It's really smart marine positioning from Clem. So now Lambo sees the factory floating around. He sees a tech lab connected to the barracks. But does he know about the widow mines that are already heading towards his main base? And indeed, they won't be permanently cloaked. You don't have to worry about getting a sport crawler or an overseer. But 2 mines, and Clem, just look at the mini-map. He's going to distract Lambo at first. Gonna be like, hey, here are my Hellions. Just take a look at that. Lambo's not gonna fall for it though. Widow Mine will drop, will still commit. Slow Widow Mines. One of them will burrow. Really good defense by Lambo.
Yeah, the Hellions are gonna swing into the third base while that happens and just getting 3 drone kills so far, but especially when you compare it to the way that those have worked out for him before. Yeah, I think you can say Lambo's happy with the way that mine drop went. Absolutely. Stellar defense, and he's feeling good too, expanding down the map. So for Clem to move out and hit those expansions, he has to go to the complete opposite corner, which is going to take the maximum amount of time. So that allows Lambo to keep his attention on the top side of the map with those drops going in on that direct air path.
Yep, and I think what's problematic for Clem as well is that obviously the medevac took a lot of damage, so he had to send it all the way home. Otherwise, he could have maybe done something rather cute and pick up some Hellions, drop those in the pocket expand. I think since Lambo clearly focused a little bit more on the Widow Mine drop than he focused on the Hellions, there was definitely an opening for Clem, because almost all the links were in the main base. If the Hellions would have gone for everything, gone for gold in the natural, I think they would have dealt a lot of damage, but that did not happen. Stim is now done though, and that means that we are going to have an 8 Marine drop, and there is indeed the Spire from Lambo, double Evo. I love to see it, but it is safe to say that this is the kind of game where if Lambo wants to win it, basically a lot of things need to go right for him in a row, right? From minute 8 till minute 12, it needs to be victory after victory after victory after victory, because he just wants to end it with this style, and he probably does not want to play a 25-minute game sticking on Mudaling Bane.
No, because that's. I mean, look, if he builds the Widow Mines again too, then the Mutas, they're also pretty good against those guys. So getting caught or running into random mines like that is absolutely not what you want to have happen, as the armory is on the way. So he's going to reinforce this with another drop, and it is interesting that Lambo's not really fighting over that north spot or that watchtower. He's just ready to defend and adjust everything to that south side so that it just takes forever to Clem to get real value out of these attacks. But that cheeky Liberator behind the bottom fourth, that is very annoying.
Yep, especially because Lambo didn't actually have any vision, and the Banelings get sniped, but one of the Banelings does connect, and that's so big for Lambo. Otherwise, this could have already been very problematic. Yeah, I was kind of scared because Lambo does not have vision of this little corner of his own pocket expand. Now he's going to send a couple of units, and this is where he sees one Marine, he sees a medevac, so at this point he knows he has to be careful. Ooh, Lambo can be very, very, very fortunate that Baneling connected. The next wave, though, is already here, and Clem does have a 25 army supply advantage. He's got Widow Mines and Hellbats in the main base of Lambo.
And these types of attacks are really annoying, but he's got a weird amount of space to work with. The Banelings are going to come in here, try to bait that mine shot onto the medevacs, and they do, but they all die, so he did keep a few of them alive in the back. But those Hellbats in this spot, when it is mostly just the Zerglings with a bit of stimmed bio, it's a very dicey situation to attack into, but this is really the setup for that bio attack. The Rumbai on the bottom side, that's what needs to get some serious damage for Clem.
Yep, Lambo will be able to clean things up here on the top side of the map. Well, not like that. He actually sent the Mutas by themselves. Clem is just finding a lot of good little trades here. Lambo needs to make up his mind. What does he want to focus on? That is honestly kind of painful. A couple of Mutas have already gone down, but he does save the base in the bottom right side. 3 Mutas have fallen within 30 seconds of the Mutas appearing on the battlefield for the first time, but at least Lambo keeps every single base safe, and he's still at 83 drones. But this is where things need to happen for Lambo, right? It's time to go pedal to the metal, and it's time to not just get trades, but to get big victories on the board.
Yeah, And that even that mine shot actually onto the mutas earlier too was a little more insult to injury. Is going to come up. He will be able to pick that off without it detonating again. And Clem was able to get some of the creep in the meantime, but his 2-2 is coming through, and just had +2 melee starting up just now for Lambo, whereas a lot of those banelings got picked up. And this is the hard part about trying to play a Mutalisk style, is that if you want to mass banelings and overrun people, that's great, that's awesome, but you're gonna have less banelings, and those mines are still dealing some nice damage. So this forward base is a very important point for Clem to secure. I'm not sure that there's enough banelings to really knock it off.
Not yet. Lambo's going to try to get something done with the Mutas. There is a Widow Mine next to that missile turret, and that's going to be a big shot on all these Mutas. A lot of splash damage on the SCVs as well, to be fair. But yeah, Lambo obviously doesn't want to bleed out too many Mutas. His supply is exploding, though. There are more Widow Mines there on the left. Needs to be awfully careful with the Mutas. He sees it. What are we going to do about all the Marines that are on this side of the map? We have 8 banelings only on the map. There are 10 more banelings morphing, though. Lambo's going to bring back the Mutas, and then he's going to look for a great engagement. On creep, I believe. Off creep, not so much.
Yeah, and he's retreating. The Ling Bane trying to catch up to this with the Mutalisk support. Wants to try to force them to pick up and let the Mutas dive. Some of those Marines getting left behind, though, and dragging them on the disengage to push the Mutas away from diving onto this planetary fortress. A huge defensive point to fall back to. Baneling's not going to try and test the waters just yet. Situations like this, Roddy, bring me back to what you were saying last game. If Lambo mixed Burrow into this, I feel like we could have some serious action for a Zerg player, but it is tough, right? A lot of that gas that would be going into the 50 banelings is now getting spread into the mutas, and obviously the upgrades as well, which makes it just a little bit tougher to take those big fights in the open field.
This seems that Lambo is not too big of a fan of the upgrade, doesn't believe that is going to make the difference, but I really do think, especially since Clem is so good in pushing back the creep, that there is a lot of potential in the burrowed banelings, and we've seen that time and time again in this matchup. Clem move commanding a little bit there. There is one Widow Mine on the right side that gets a good shot off. The mine on the left gets taken out by the banelings, and this is where Lambo ideally gets a little more than he's been getting so far. But there are so many defensive mines, right? Clem is not even bringing out all the mines. Lambo's still going for it. Nate, this feels really questionable. Planetary and Widow Mines are so freaking good against banelings of creep.
Yeah, that planetary fortress has 28 kills, and that's all lings or banelings. Very, very helpful. And obviously every baneling that you're getting with that is very nice. I think one interesting thing to keep in mind, Drilling Claws did just complete. That was certainly a weak point when he was trying to retreat and burrow behind himself. The Lings and Banes were able to catch up before they could actually fire. So that was a nice spot for him. Medevac's going to shuffle the Thor up into the main base, however, trying to continue to push these Mutalisks away. And that's where you have to make that hard choice. How much do you want to invest into the static defense? Of course, as Lambo's going to continue to bring that pressure, has a huge Ling Bane fleet outside of that expansion too. Now the mines do burrow a bit faster, and we see them get some very juicy shots.
Yep, Mutas are a bit stuck as well. There are still a couple of turrets there near the planetary fortress. If we take a look at the units lost resource tab at this point, Lambo has already lost 6,000 resources, more than Clem. And if you then take a look at the income graph, yeah, he's been mining more, but it's not that much more. And on top of that, he's also not working with a composition that scales incredibly well. Stargazes is very difficult for a Zerg. Lambo is trying to make magic happen with the middling Bane comp, but I have the feeling that this game is not going his way.
Oh, it's a very stressful situation. He does get a good surround on this army. He's going to continue to push him back, but the Widow Mines onto the Banes have just been brutal. And I mean, the best thing that he has is the Mutas to try and push it away too, and he is going to chase all the way back into Clem's base. So this is actually a pretty nice amount of damage done for Lambo. Clem is going for a counterattack though onto the natural. There's just a few Queens and Lings and Banes to try and hold this. Gonna eat a huge mine shot going past the wall, and there's another one on top of this ramp. Hits the Mutas and several of the Banelings, but I don't think he's gotten to that point where he can just camp the production and kill everything. So this just goes from ugly to even worse here as Lambo, he killed a lot of SCVs, but there's still 71 workers for Clem. And then we remember mules exist. The drones are exposed. The overlords are exposed in the natural. Everything that dies here is huge. Think about that big supply block Lambo got into last game. He's currently blocked at 142. Now the Spire will die. I think if you're Clem, just take out the rest of the overlords, shadow realm that supply, and make it so difficult for Lambo to come back and build more units.
this double drop or this double move out has been fantastic for Clem. Look at the amount of kills on these Marines. A lot of these Marines have 12, 13, 14 kills. Even the hatchery falls. The Spire has gone down. Lambo is now going to try to drop an Ultralisk Cavern, but I think he also knows that this is a day late and a dollar short. Clem had 114 army supply. Lambo only working with 60. Stargazers is difficult for Zerg. We all know
He's
that.
still not building Overlords. He needs to build Overlords. He's been capped for a little bit here too from that huge attack. So
he needs a lot more than Overlords, I'm afraid, Nate.
yeah, I guess that's a fair point. He's going to push in onto the southeast base. Thor is up front, ready to tank it. The Widow Mines are going to pop on the Mutas, and just about everything is dead over here. Those Mutas have 5 health. GG is called, and Clem is going to go up 2-1 in this best of 5.
I think Clem played very well there. It's obviously difficult to go up against such a strong Zerg like Lambo when he is playing that overwhelming Zergy style. But Clem, it felt that he was never too stressed out. It felt like he kind of just took it slow and steady. And he was like, this is not really up to me. I don't have to make all the plays here on the other side of the map. And like, what's up to me is get my 4-base setup going, get a couple of missile turrets, get a nice strong army, and make sure that I'm always fine off creep. And then if you want to do something about it, it really is up to you. So didn't really overcommit. I was worried at one moment it felt that he forgot to pay attention to his main army, where it was only Marines and Medevacs in the center of the map. And Lambo almost pounced on that. If Clem would have reacted like half a second later, he could have actually been losing 30 plus Marines there because there was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, no Widow Mines to back it up. But that really was, I feel like, almost the only really scary point there for Clem. He just played well, and Lambo couldn't quite find that crazy momentum that he needs with that style to make it work on that map.
Yeah, and I think one of the best adjustments that we've seen made in this series is Clem shifting away from the siege tanks and into the Widow Mines. As soon as Drilling Claws was done, it went from kind of being chased back every time he moved out to suddenly those big hits were coming through. The Mutas were getting chunked left and right, and a lot of really big hits because Lambo's just trying to surround. He's trying to get these big engagements, and I think maybe he's thinking that the Widow Mine friendly fire is going to help even that out when those detonations happen. But Clem has just been so good at avoiding it. Very, very little in the way of self-inflicted damage by those mines. It's a difficult thing to control, but yeah, he's kind of started to take a little bit more control of this series back now after losing that first map. He's got 2 in a row here. Lambo's got his work cut out for him.
And the next map is going to be Data Sea, obviously a much better Zerg map than Stargazers. So hopefully we get to see a game 5 between these 2 European powerhouses. In the top right side, we're looking at the main base of the man that is still representing Team Liquid and is still allowed to dream about winning this tournament again for a 5th time. Team Liquid's Clem.
His opponent spawning in the bottom left, the blue Zerg. We have Shopify Rebellion's Lambo.
These 4 best of 5s, Nate, they've been pretty epic, man. It really does feel like the playoffs, right? It's just a lot of lead changes, unpredictable games, pretty crazy builds overall, and crazy pacing. And I feel like we can definitely see the nerves of the players kicking in every now and then. Not so much in this series, but it has really felt like a playoff day to me.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. You can really tell everything is on the line for these guys, and they're bringing it out in a way that we got glimpses of in that group stage. But man, oh man, it is just fascinating now. So Lambo getting up to that hatch first, then the pool. So no cheeky shenanigans here. I mean, Data Sea is a great map for Terran defensively because you have the ramp into the natural. You can block that ramp with 3 buildings if you want, but also, of course, you have the huge airspace to work with again. So if you're Lambo, do you go into the Mutas again? I don't know. It didn't really play out the way that he was looking for in that first game. But at the same time, I'm expecting Clem to stick heavy on the Marines and the mines. So if there's a way to exploit that for Lambo, I'm really not that sure because the strength is definitely in a lot of those Ling Bane engagements. it's just tough to avoid the mines sometimes.
Yeah, and it's not that easy to say like, oh, you should just go into ultras very quickly. That's gonna be sick, or lurkers, because then Clem is obviously gonna go much heavier on the ghosts. Even in the game where Clem did go, game 2, Clem did definitely go back into mines a lot more heavy. He did still have ghosts out there in case he needed ghosts, and Lambo's having some fun with himself there as he sprays GG on the ground while waiting to have the minerals to morph into a hatchery. Kind of random, but good to see Lambo's having some fun in obviously a stressful and important best of 5.
Yeah, and I thought everybody unbinds the spray hotkey on their worker. You know,
it's why. Like I like the idea of spraying, and I think it's always kind of funny when people spray against me. And I used to love the Kumo spray from the TB package. I always thought that one was very cute. But why? It's so far away, man. This is like not a button I press very often, so I don't spray as much. I only ever think about it if somebody else sprays, and we have a proxy starport. Nate Darino, what is happening over here?
I'm feeling with since it is just a Hellion opening, it is giving me the vibes we might just have the Hellion scooch over and then go for a quick drop. The angle that it would come from, though, would be towards the natural, where he could just run in anyway. So what he might be thinking of doing is swinging completely around the bottom side, and if he doesn't get seen, go into the main from the back, and
what about
would be
Liberator?
Very hard to predict, but it could also be a Liberator. Yeah, I think that's a great choice too. So he can apply a pressure from both directions. Yeah, and it is going to be that Liberator.
Yep, I think the idea here is obviously a Liberator is going to show up a lot quicker than it would normally show up if you build the starport at home, and then Lambo could potentially pull the drones away from the Liberator, and that's where the Hellions sweep in, baby. Roast them and toast them. This could work out in an absolutely phenomenal way. Can also fall flat on its face, but it's going to be pretty cool to see because the timings, these guys have them all so mapped out. But this time around, the timings are different, right? And Lambo is also going to be a little bit confused when he's like, what the hell? You're going to have a Liberator in my natural like 20 seconds quicker than you're supposed to have it.
Yeah, and that's definitely a little bit of a panic moment too, because we know that Clem, he is always watching and waiting with those Hellions to jump in onto the third base. So the Overlord that's outside the natural, we'll see it as it's coming in. How fast will Lambo react? What is there that can defend against it immediately? A Spore Crawler begins to morph, but might take a little drone damage on the way out there. Just gets one.
Yep. Following Lambo's camera, he definitely saw it very quickly. The Hellions are thinking about it, but they see that the Queens are nearby, that the Lings are nearby. Liberator is going to grab a couple of extra kills, though. Oh, could go for a Queen here. Could go for a Queen. Nice transfuse by Lambo, but the Lib still gets one Queen kill and could have actually gotten another one if the target fire was there. But Clem is like, no, the target fire isn't there because I'm busy with my Hellions. I'm finding damage, and I'm happy with that. I think overall pretty solid for Clem, right? Like one Liberator went down for a Queen and 6 drones. I think it's a pretty solid start.
Yeah, not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. And the Hellions are continuing to apply pressure on the creep spread. He does see, too, that the 4th hatchery is on the way there. So if anything was going to indicate to him that it's not like Lambo's about to hit him with some sort of counterattack or all in, then that's the indicator that he's looking for, because he should be fine. Double engineering bay is going again, just like last game, Kev. His stim is already done. So he's going into combat shield, and I mean, Clem is just, he loves to get this setup where he does all the normal aggressive stuff at the beginning that you expect, but he's still going 3 CCs every game. He's going 3 CCs. He's taking that third as fast as he possibly can, even before it transforms into the orbital. And he just wants to get set up for that 4 base parade push as soon as he can. He plays a little bit less around just the 3. He thinks a lot about having that 4 spot. And I think that that's just a good way to approach the game, because it's hard to kill your opponent early on, but he just applies that pressure over and over again and forces those mistakes that we've seen. And it hasn't been a lot of mistakes. It's just been a couple crucial moments, you know, when that mine hits the mutas and 5 banelings at the same time. That's a game-winning move right there.
Yes, indeed. Lambo has taken control of the zone like a watchtower on the bottom right side. Could maybe give him the idea of to commit on this, or give him the good idea. Oh, okay, we're going to go for Banelings instead. So he's like not looking for a little Ling run by at all. Going to morph a couple of Banelings. Obviously the same idea does stand. Lambo is going to wait. sometimes you can just get a little sneak peek and see these Hellions. He has an Overlord in the center, he has a watchtower, and now he waits, and that's why you can really see vision is everything. But Clem is like, wait a minute, something doesn't quite feel right here. Has Hellions in the bottom right side. Lambo has hidden the Baneling successfully though. Oh my goodness, this is insane. Clem has not seen it. Absolutely insane Baneling movement here. So there is still a big fight that's going to happen, but these Banelings have crazy potential. If they can go through the bunker, oh, they're going to connect, Nate. That's 17 SCVs falling.
That's a lot of dead Terran workers and a beautiful little maneuvering there by Lambo. I have to say, Kev, I felt like there were 5 times that could have gone wrong and blown up in his face. Yeah. Instead, it blows up in Clem's base. And now the Hellbats are going to get popped by these Banes, and he's just fighting over creep. So he will be forced to retreat, and Clem is headed home. A very, very nice exchange here from Lambo. As Clem does have his 4th command center on the way, but having to rebuild those SCVs, that's a huge pain in the butt. You can see he's spending his minerals, but he does not have that many Marines in production because he needs workers.
It was so cool to follow all of that from Lambo's point of view and also Clem's point of view, right? Just to see what Clem thought. Clem was looking for it and missed it ever so slightly. Clem now knows that he's got a bit of an uphill battle to fight here, but has a double drop in the main base, grabs the Queen immediately, gets an Overlord. Baneling nest would be a painful loss. Clem is going to try to gun down a couple of the Banelings that are here to save the Baneling nest. At the same time, though, Marines are going to get on top of this hatchery at the bottom side of the map. Lambo seems at first a bit indecisive. Clem with nice target fire again, and that low HP Baneling does not connect. Jeez Louise, man. Clem is really stepping up the pace here a little bit, Nate. He's all over the place.
Yeah, he's cranking the heat, and a lot of these drops getting in and dealing a bit of damage here and there. But, you know, it's none of that crucial damage. It's none of that critical infrastructure being taken out. Lambo is still getting where he wants to be. He's got his Banelings coming through. The 2-2 started, Infestation Pit. He's not actually as far behind on the upgrades as he was in the previous map. So that being said, Clem is getting his drilling claws much faster, and he's already on 2 factories. So he's got a lot of ability to get those mines out. The bunker without Marines just doesn't really do it, Roddy. Just doesn't really, the bunker on its own, it doesn't do anything, unfortunately.
That is big. Now, Clem still has an arm in the top left. That could also be big. Nice on Burrow on the Widow Mine. Lambo wants to save his hatch, and he does not save the hatchery. And the Widow Mine shots are big, too. So getting 18 drones is fantastic. Widow Mine dropping the bottom side of the map. The Observer is catching everything. A couple of drones fall. I mean, this is just an insane game. It's getting messy, but the Marines are still going strong in the top left side. And the Widow Mine explosions are getting bigger and bigger.
What a crazy series. This match, man, this has been a banger. Somebody's got to put this on a platinum disc and frame it somewhere. What a great series we've had here between Clem and Lambo. Just absolute bloodbath, especially for the workers in the last minute or two here. Trying to come up the ramp to chase. The Overseers don't have speed, so they're catching up a little bit slow, and a huge detonation again for Clem.
I'll be honest, I am surprised that he even got the first 2 mines. I was like, I wouldn't even go for the first one. Lambo gets that one. I definitely wouldn't go for the second one. He gets that one too. But mine number 3 was a mine too far. There is still a mine being annoying in the back of the natural. Lambo is once more going to be forced to cancel this base on the left side. And that is just problematic. Actually, I'm surprised that Clem was running away there because his army seemed a bit stronger. Does get the cancel in the end and gets a couple of lings. There's a cherry on top. And Lambo is just in all sorts of trouble here. Such a strong first game, but after Clem stopped building tanks and started building Widow Mines, things have gone better. This game, Lambo did find some economic damage too, right? He even killed more SCVs. It's just that the fights are all going very well for Clem so far.
Lambo has killed more workers than Clem has in this game. And that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, the damage that's been inflicted by these mines onto the Lings and Banes, that's where it's all coming through. And that's what we were talking about in that first game. It seemed like the one thing that might have helped would be just making mines instead of tanks. It has worked. It has worked big time. And he's got another push coming over towards that northwest base. 2 mines are trailing. Behind it, the Banes do come forward, but it's just that extra little attention he needs to pay to it. And even the Banelings on an A move, they're going to prioritize running towards that mine. Even if they kill it before it goes off, they're still not running towards the Marines. It's giving them a little bit more room to breathe.
Clem actually gets a decent amount of Banelings there. A few of the Marines did, of course, fall in that process, but he's going to unload immediately on the edge of creep. He's still active with Marines to the bottom side. This best of 5 felt scary for Clem on paper. It was very scary after that first game didn't go his way. but it almost felt that somebody just needed to poke Clem. Was like, hey man, against this style, you can do the thing that made you arguably the best TVZ player on the planet for a split moment, and that is where you can just go pure buy a Widowmine. You love it, you're great at it, and it's safe to say that this is really reminiscent of the times where Clem was dominating the European DreamHacks, and he was getting victory after victory over Raynor and Sero as well, because these are the kinds of games that the kid is just incredibly good at.
Yeah, and that moment as everything kind of pounces on that big drop inside the main base. So here's the adjustment from Lambo. It took a little bit for us to get here, but it's just a much faster setup with the lurkers, and that is obviously going to do way better against the Widowmines, this kind of composition where he's diving in as the Terran, and against just Marines, you're going to have all those clump ups just as you would typically expect. So now
lurkers in the main base.
It's going to have to slow it down and go back into the Ghost, as that big drop's going to jump into the main, Roddy.
Yeah, there are no lurkers in the main base, and the biggest problem is that the lurkers do not have their adaptive talents upgrade yet, so they are a bit slow. Clem can just avoid them. Widowmine will connect with the Queens, and the Marines can just keep running away from the lurkers. Lambo is going for his own offense zone on the other side of the map, and the Widowmine shell blows up the majority of his banelings before the lurkers can even get into the natural. I mean, Lambo is definitely killing a decent amount of units here, but I am afraid, Nate, that it is not going to be enough, unfortunately, for Lambo. It seems that his DreamHack European Masters will end here.